Well, thank you for having me here. I wish I had some good news, but actually it's pretty bleak when you look at the numbers that you've just given. Over 60 million people who have been forcibly displaced around the world today. It's a staggering figure, and indeed it's the most people we've seen displaced forcibly by war, by persecution, by massive human rights violations than we've ever seen since World War II. So the situation is rather dire. It's a humanitarian crisis, and we hope that the countries of the world can come together to address it, to tackle not only the root problems but also the effects of what is going on with all these wars around the world.
Right. I see also there are a number of root problems that cause this displacement. Besides war, there are also some other issues such as famine, disease, and probably drought as well, and probably there are natural incidents as well. But from all these root problems, which one would be the most challenging of all?
Well, from our perspective at UNHCR, when you talk about 60 million people who have been displaced from their homes, it's because of war, it's because of persecution, it's because of massive human rights violations. These are the issues that cause people to flee and that create refugees around the world. So those are the problems that we're looking at the most and trying to encourage governments to solve. And in the meantime, until they do, that they keep their borders open so that refugees can have a safe place to be.
Right. When you're talking about nations to open their borders, we've also seen that they're undergoing crisis, to a very serious crisis in Western Europe, especially that a high number of refugees that Germany accepted, and also other European countries such as France or UK, Belgium, Italy, and others. It actually breeds more problems, such as the rise of right-wing parties and the rise of people extra-nationalism. And in your opinion, how can we tackle that kind of problem?
Well, I think a lot of the xenophobia that you see, there are political agendas that people have, but most of it is based on fear and misinformation. I think when people realize who refugees really are, they would understand how important it is to help them. I mean, we're talking about people who have no choice but to literally flee for their lives and to save themselves, to save their families, to save their mothers, their brothers, their babies, their sisters, everyone. You and I, if we were faced with a situation where bombs are going off overhead and you have no safe place to stay in your country, you would hope that there would be someone that would provide you a helping hand and give you a safe place to stay until the wars stop. And I think the countries in Western Europe, in Europe in general, they faced these sorts of atrocities during World War II. They know very well what it's like to be in search of a safe place and how important it was to have countries welcome them and allow them to stay until the situation could improve, either in their home countries or in their host country. They could rebuild their lives. So it's the same sort of situation. It's a very natural thing to want to be safe and to have a normal life for yourself and your family. That's not too much to ask for. And I think when people understand who refugees really are and that they didn't have any choice but to run for their lives, it's easier not to be afraid to want to help them. You know, people flee for safety, usually because of war, because of massive human rights violations, as I've said. Until countries can come together and can find ways to stop these wars, people are going to continue to flee. You look at the situation in Syria right now. That civil war has been going on for almost 7 years now, I believe. There's over 13 million people that have been forced from their homes because of that war. Unfortunately, that war doesn't look to be resolved anytime soon. Until countries come together and find a way to stop wars like what is going on in Syria, they're going to have to allow people to come into their countries and be safe. It's just as simple as that. So UNHCR cannot stop wars. All we can do is help respond to the humanitarian crises that are caused by war. Until governments come together and find a way to create peace in these countries, UNHCR, unfortunately, will always be responding to these crises. So we can respond to the crises, but we can't stop the wars. It's up to countries to do that. And we very much would hope that with the support of the United Nations and agencies like UNHCR's that respond to the humanitarian crises, that countries will live up to the challenge, because honestly, there's no choice anymore. How long are we going to wait until countries find the political will to resolve these conflicts? Until there's another 60 million people who are forcibly displaced from their homes? 60 million is already the size of a country that would be the 24th largest country in the world if it were a country and all the refugees were in one place and all the displaced people were in one place. 24th largest country in the world. There's got to be an end to these wars, and that's the way that this crisis will be resolved. Until then, what UNHCR can do is to help respond to the humanitarian crisis that we see. But that also takes support and contributions from the international community.